The first thing I noticed was the empty space. Not the kind of empty that means something's missing, but the kind of empty that shouts. My old Ford F-150, the same one I'd driven for over 15 years, was gone. It wasn't a sleek, new truck. It had dents and scratches, a faded red paint job that told 100 stories of long road trips and hard work. But it was mine. It was more than just a vehicle. It was a part of me, a rolling history of my life. I stood there on the driveway, the cold morning air biting at my cheeks, my coffee mug forgotten in my hand. The sun was just a promise on the horizon, but its weak light was enough to illuminate the glaring absence. I squinted, as if my vision could conjure the truck back into existence. Maybe I had just forgotten where I parked it. A ridiculous thought, but my mind was scrambling for any explanation that wasn't the one staring me in the face. My chest tightened, and a cold dread began to creep up my spine. I'd spent the last month in the hospital. A bad fall from a ladder, stupid, careless mistake, had landed me with a broken leg and a concussion. The kids, Sarah and Michael, had been great. They'd visited every day, brought me books, and made sure the house was taken care of. I'd felt a deep gratitude for them, a swelling pride that my kids, now grown, were still looking out for their old man. Michael was 23 and Sarah was 21. They were good kids, but still just kids in many ways. They were supposed to be responsible, but I had a sinking feeling this was something I wasn't prepared for. I limped back inside the house, the crutches feeling clumsy and foreign under my arms. The quiet was louder than any noise. The house felt different too, cleaner, a little too organized, as if someone had been trying to erase my presence. I set my mug down on the kitchen counter, the ceramic clinking against the stone with a sound that seemed to echo in the silent space. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling slightly as I dialed Michael's number. It rang 3 times before he picked up, his voice groggy. "Hey, Dad, you're home?" "Yeah, I'm home," I said, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. "Where's the truck, Michael?" There was a long pause on the other end, a silence that felt heavy and thick with unspoken words. I could almost hear him breathing, the pause stretching out into an eternity. We sold it, Dad," he finally said, the words barely a whisper. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "You did what?" My voice was loud now, filled with a sudden hot anger. "Without asking me. What in God's name were you thinking? Dad, listen, it was a mess. It was always breaking down, needing repairs. We were trying to help. Help? By selling something that doesn't belong to you, that I told you 100 times not to touch?" My knuckles were white as I gripped the phone. "Where is it, Michael? Who did you sell it to?" "A dealership, a place called Honest Auto out on Route 23. Dad, please don't be mad. We got a good price for it. We have the money." "The money?" I scoffed. "The money means nothing. That truck was my livelihood, Michael. It was how I did my handyman work. How I got around. Do you have any idea how much work I put into that truck?" The call ended with a click. Michael had hung up. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just about the truck. It was about the lack of respect, the casual assumption that they could make such a huge decision for me. I felt like a stranger in my own life, my children treating me like a senile old man who couldn't be trusted to make his own decisions. I tried to call Sarah, but she didn't answer. She probably knew. They had probably planned this together. The thought twisted a knife in my heart. The kids I had raised, the ones I had worked so hard for, had gone behind my back and done something so utterly disrespectful. My leg was throbbing and my head ached. I slumped into a chair at the kitchen table, the silence in the house replaced by the loud, relentless thumping of my own heartbeat. I looked around the pristine kitchen, the polished countertops, the neatly stacked dishes. It wasn't my kitchen. It was a museum of a life I no longer recognized. I felt a sudden, profound loneliness. I knew what I had to do. They had made their decision. Now, it was time for me to make mine. They thought they were helping, but they had crossed a line, and there was a debt to be paid, not just for the truck, but for the trust they had shattered. I was a man of principles, and one of them was that actions have consequences. And sometimes, those consequences are hard-earned lessons. I started to plot my move. I wasn't just going to get angry. I was going to show them what it meant to disrespect me, and the first step was to get that money back. Every single dollar. It was the only way I could make them understand the gravity of their actions. The money wasn't the point, but it was the only leverage I had. They had taken my truck, and now I would take their money. It was a cold, hard truth, but it was the only path forward. I felt the anger solidify into a resolve, a determined purpose that pushed away the pain. This was not just about a truck. It was about teaching my children a lesson they would never forget. The crutches were an anchor, a constant reminder of my physical and emotional vulnerability. I called a cab, a rare expense for me, but I knew I couldn't drive. The driver, a kind man with tired eyes, seemed to sense my tension, but said nothing. He drove me to Honest Auto on Route 23, a place I had passed 100 times but never thought I'd visit under these circumstances. The lot was a mix of shiny new cars and used beaters, all lined up like metal soldiers in various states of disrepair. My heart sank. There was no way I'd find my truck here. A saleswoman with a practiced smile approached me. Her name tag read, Brenda. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her voice a little too cheerful for my mood. "I'm here about a truck," I said, my voice tight. "A red Ford F-150, old model. My kid sold it to you." Brenda's smile faltered. She looked at me for a moment, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. "Oh, yes. The young man and the young lady. They said it was their father's truck and he was downsizing, said he was moving into a retirement home and wouldn't need it anymore." The lie hit me like a physical blow. The gall, the calculated deception. They hadn't just sold it. They had fabricated a story, a narrative that painted me as a weak old man giving up his independence. The betrayal felt even deeper now. I had a hard time keeping the fury out of my voice. "I'm not moving into a retirement home," I said, my jaw clenching. "And I wasn't downsizing. That was my truck and they had no right to sell it." Brenda's expression turned from professional to genuinely concerned. "I'm sorry, sir. We had no idea." They had all the paperwork. The title was in their mother's name, but the young man had a signed and notarized power of attorney from her. The bill of sale was signed by both of them. Everything looked legitimate. My stomach turned. My late wife, Susan. The truck had been in her name for insurance reasons, a small detail I had long forgotten. And the power of attorney. That must have been old, from a time when she needed help with her finances before she passed. But the bill of sale signed by them was a clear deception. They had forged her signature, or used an old one in a way that was completely fraudulent. The lengths they had gone to. It was stunning. "I need to know how much you paid them," I demanded. Brenda hesitated. "That's confidential, sir." "Confidential?" I scoffed. "My children stole my property and sold it to you. That's not confidential, that's a crime, and you might be an accessory. You give me a number or I'm calling the police." "Right now." She sighed and walked back to her office, returning with a clipboard. She scribbled something down and handed it to me. "We paid them a considerable amount. They said the money was for a down payment on a house they were buying together." The number on the paper made my head swim. It was a substantial sum, far more than the truck was worth. A down payment for a house? The sheer audacity of it left me speechless. They had used my truck, my life's work, to fund their own future, a future they hadn't even bothered to consult me about. They had taken my past to build their future. "I need that money back," I said, my voice flat. Brenda looked at me, her expression sympathetic. "I can't just give you the money, sir. We bought the vehicle in a legal transaction. This is a civil matter between you and your children. I suggest you talk to them, or to a lawyer." I knew she was right, but her words felt like a slap in the face. I took the crumpled piece of paper with the number, my anger morphing into a cold, hard resolve. This wasn't just about the truck anymore. It was about them, about their actions, about the fundamental lack of respect and trust. I left the dealership feeling a new, more profound pain. It wasn't just the loss of the truck. It was the loss of who I thought my children were. When I got home, I found a note taped to the refrigerator. It was in Sarah's neat handwriting. "Dad, we're sorry. We know you're mad. We wanted to talk, but we know you need time. We did this for your own good. The truck was falling apart, and you needed a safer car. We'll give you the money. Don't worry. We love you." I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. For my own good. The patronizing words echoed in my mind, a cruel mockery of their betrayal. They hadn't done it for me. They had done it for themselves. The money was for a down payment, not a new car for me. It was all a lie. I felt a knot of pure fury tightening in my stomach. I knew this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. This was a battle, a test of wills, and I was going to fight it with every ounce of strength I had. I pulled out my laptop, my fingers clunky on the keyboard. I found the number for a lawyer, an old friend of mine, Frank, who had handled some minor legal issues for me in the past. I wasn't looking to press charges, not yet, but I needed to know my options. I needed to understand the legal ground I stood on. I wasn't just going to let them off the hook. I called Frank, and his voice was a welcome comfort in the storm. I explained the situation, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and sadness. He listened patiently, quietly. When I finished, he was silent for a moment before speaking. "That's a tough one, my friend," he said softly. "Family disputes are always messy. Legally, you may have a case for fraud, but it's complicated when it's your own kids. You might be able to get an injunction to freeze the money, but that's a whole other can of worms. My advice, as a friend, is to try and talk to them first. Get them to understand the gravity of their actions. Tell them what you've been through, but if that doesn't work, we can explore other options." I hung up, the words, "talk to them," echoing in my mind. How could I talk to them when they had lied to my face, lied to the dealership, and so utterly betrayed my trust? The thought of a conversation filled me with dread. It wouldn't be a talk, it would be a confrontation. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that it was going to be the most painful conversation of my life. The money was just a symbol, a currency of their disrespect. Getting it back wasn't just about the cash. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my autonomy, and the respect I deserved as their father. I had to make them see the consequences of their actions. The air in my house was thick with unspoken tension. I had called a family meeting. Not a calm, collected talk, but a demand. "Be here at 6, both of you. We need to talk. And don't bring up the note." I had hung up before either of them could respond. They arrived promptly at 6, their faces etched with a mix of apprehension and defiance. Michael, with his broad shoulders and a look of practiced indifference, and Sarah, her eyes wide and a nervous flutter in her hands. They sat on opposite sides of the living room, a safe distance from me. The silence was suffocating, the kind that precedes a storm. I leaned forward, my hands clasped on my knee, the crutches resting against the wall like silent sentinels. "I went to Honest Auto today," I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Brenda, the saleswoman, told me a story. She said I was downsizing and moving to a retirement home. She said you told her that." Sarah's face flushed and she looked down at her hands. Michael stared straight at me, his eyes hard. "We had to, Dad," he said, his voice low. "We couldn't just walk in there and say we were selling your truck behind your back. They would have never done the deal." "So you lied," I said, the words a bitter taste in my mouth. "You created a whole story to sell my property. What else did you lie about? The bill of sale? The power of attorney from your mother?" Michael's defiance crumbled for a second, and he looked at Sarah, a silent plea for help. She spoke, her voice small. "Dad, we didn't forge Mom's signature. We used a copy of the one she signed for her will. It was legal. It had to be." I felt a cold wave wash over me. They had used their deceased mother's signature, a sacred document from a time of immense pain and loss, to facilitate their betrayal. The line they had crossed wasn't just about my trust. It was about the memory of their mother, something I held so sacred. "You used your mother's will to sell my truck?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The anger had turned into a profound sorrow. "It was the only way," Michael insisted, a desperate edge to his voice. "We were trying to help. That truck was a rust bucket. It was dangerous. The brakes were squealing, the engine was on its last leg, and you almost died because you fell off a ladder. We couldn't stand to see you work yourself into an early grave. And you thought selling my truck would prevent that?" I shot back, a sudden surge of pure rage flooding my veins. "That truck was my livelihood. It was how I put food on the table. It was how I paid for your college. It was how I built this house, how I fixed everything. Every dent, every scratch on that truck has a story. It's a symbol of my life. And you sold it for what? For a down payment on a house you didn't even bother to tell me about?" Sarah started to cry, her shoulders shaking. "We wanted it to be a surprise, Dad. A place for us to all be together. We wanted to show you we could be responsible. We wanted to help you. The money from the truck was supposed to be the first step." "The first step in what?" I demanded. "In taking over my life, in making decisions for me, in treating me like a child? I am not a child, and I am not helpless. I worked my whole life to give you two a better future. I taught you to be honest and responsible, and you went behind my back and lied. To me, to a stranger. You lied with every word, every action. Michael finally broke, his voice thick with emotion. You never listened to us, Dad. We told you 100 times that truck was a death trap. We offered to help you fix it, to sell it, but you just wouldn't listen. You just cling to the past, to old things, to a life that's already gone. We just wanted you to move on, to be safe. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. My stubbornness, my refusal to change. It was a part of me, I knew. I held on to things, to memories, to the past. But was it an excuse for what they had done? No. It was a reason, maybe, but not an excuse. Clinging to the past is what keeps me connected to your mother, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. That truck, it was the last thing we bought together. It was a part of her, a part of us. It wasn't just a truck. It was a symbol of my life, and you sold it for a house. The silence returned, heavier this time, filled with the weight of my words. The tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. Michael's expression was a mix of regret and confusion. So, what do you want from us, Dad? Michael asked, his voice defeated. You want an apology? You want us to tell you we're sorry? We're sorry. But we did what we thought was right. Sorry isn't enough, I said, my voice hardening. It's not about an apology. It's about consequences. The dealership paid you X amount of dollars for my truck. I want every single one of those dollars back. I want you to give me the money, and I want it by the end of the month. Their eyes widened in shock. The money was the down payment for their house. Taking it back meant their dream was over. Dad, you can't be serious, Michael said, his voice a mixture of disbelief and panic. That's our down payment. We've been saving for years. I am dead serious, I said, my voice flat, unyielding. You made a decision for me without my consent. Now I'm making one for you. You need to learn that actions have consequences, and this is yours. Every single dollar. The truck is gone, and I can't get it back. But the money is still there. Give me the money, every last cent. The tears stopped flowing down Sarah's face. Her expression hardened, a look I had never seen before, a mix of hurt and defiance. Michael's shoulders slumped. They knew I wasn't bluffing. The trust was broken, and now so was their dream. And I, their father, the man who had always protected them, was the one who had shattered it. The weeks that followed were a blur of cold silence and strained interactions. The house, once a place of warmth and comfort, had become a mausoleum of broken trust. The phone calls, the text messages, they all went unanswered. I'd see them sometimes, Michael coming over to check on the house, Sarah dropping off groceries, but our conversations were limited to terse one-word exchanges. I spent most of my time alone, the crutches my only companion. I was recovering, but the emotional wound was far from healed. My leg was getting stronger, but my heart felt weaker than ever. The emptiness in the driveway was a constant, gnawing reminder of the chasm that had opened between me and my children. I felt like an outsider in my own life. My friends would call, and I'd put on a brave face, but the truth was, I felt profoundly alone. My son, my daughter, the two people I had sacrificed so much for, had betrayed me in the most fundamental way. They had not only taken my truck, but had also taken my sense of control, my dignity, and my trust in them. One afternoon I was sorting through a box of old photos. I found a picture of Susan and me, 25 years ago, standing proudly next to the red Ford F-150 on the day we bought it. She had her arm around me, a wide, joyful smile on her face. We were so young, so full of hope. We had planned to use that truck to haul materials for our dream home, a place to raise a family. We had done that. We had built a life, a family. But looking at the picture now, I couldn't help but feel that a part of that dream had been sold along with the truck. The memory was a ghost, a painful echo of a life I could no longer live. The phone rang. It was my sister, Clara. She lived in another state, and we didn't talk as often as we used to, but she had a knack for sensing when something was wrong. "Hey, David," she said, her voice warm and familiar. "I haven't heard from you in a while. How are you doing? How's the leg?" I tried to lie, to put on the brave face I showed my friends, but the words caught in my throat. "Not so good, Clara. Not so good." I told her everything. The truck, the lie, the down payment, the confrontation. I told her about the note, the forged signature on the bill of sale, and the pain of their betrayal. I felt a wave of relief as I spoke. The weight of the secret finally lifted. Clara listened, her silence a profound comfort. "Oh, David," she said when I finished, her voice full of sorrow. "I'm so sorry. That's just awful. I can't believe they would do that to you." "They said they were helping," I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "They said I was clinging to the past. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am." "No, David, you're not," Clara said firmly. "You're a good man, a good father, and what they did was wrong. It doesn't matter what their intentions were. They should have talked to you. They should have respected your wishes. They should have respected you. What they did was a fundamental breach of trust." "I know," I said, a tear finally escaping and rolling down my cheek. "And I told them I wanted the money back, all of it. I told them they needed to learn a lesson." Clara was silent for a moment. "And that's where I think you need to be careful, David. The money, that's a hard line. Are you sure you want to take it that far? You might get the money back, but you might lose them in the process. Is that a price you're willing to pay?" Her words hit me hard. I had been so consumed by my anger, my need for justice, that I hadn't considered the ultimate cost. I had wanted them to feel the consequences of their actions, but what if the consequence was the complete destruction of our family? What if the money was the final nail in the coffin of our relationship? "I don't know, Clara," I admitted, my voice a whisper. "I honestly don't know. I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. If I back down, they'll think they can walk all over me. If I don't, I might lose them forever." "Maybe there's a third option," Clara said softly. "Maybe you can find a way to make them understand without a nuclear option. You need to make them feel the pain of their actions. Yes, but not the pain of a father who is willing to destroy his own family for a principle. Think about it, David. You have to decide what's more important, the principle or your children." We talked for a long time, and by the end of the conversation, my anger had been replaced by a deep-seated sadness. Clara was right. I had to choose. I had to decide what I was willing to sacrifice. The money was a symbol, but my children were real, and they were my family. The next morning, I woke up with a new clarity. I was still hurt, still angry, but a new path had emerged. I wouldn't just take the money. I would make them bring it to me, every single dollar, but I wouldn't keep it. I would use it as a tool to teach them a lesson about responsibility, about trust, and about the true value of things that can't be bought or sold. I had to show them that I was a father, not just a victim, and that my love for them, however bruised and battered, was still there, waiting for them to find their way back home. I needed to plan this carefully. I needed to make them feel the weight of their choices without destroying them. The money was the key, but it wasn't the goal. The goal was to fix what they had broken, to rebuild the trust they had shattered, and to teach them a lesson about family that they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. The day the money was due, the air in the house was thick with anticipation. It was a Saturday, and I sat in my armchair, the crutches a constant reminder of my physical state. The doorbell rang at exactly noon, and my heart hammered against my ribs. I knew it was them. I opened the door to find Michael and Sarah standing on the porch, a large manila envelope clutched in Michael's hand. Their faces were pale, their eyes red-rimmed and tired. They hadn't slept well, I could tell. They looked like two people who had just been through a war. "We have it, Dad," Michael said, his voice flat. "The money." He handed me the envelope. It was heavy, filled with thick stacks of $100 bills. I took it, the weight of it in my hands, feeling like the weight of the world. It was all there, every last cent. They had done it. They had sold something they cherished, something they owned, to pay me back. They had a garage sale, they sold their computers, their gaming consoles, their jewelry. Michael sold his beloved vintage guitar, the one he had saved up for since he was a teenager. Sarah had sold some of her mother's jewelry that had been passed down to her. They had sacrificed their own treasures to pay for their mistake. It was a small, silent testament to their regret. I felt a surge of emotion, a mix of triumph and sadness. They had learned a lesson, but the cost was high. I opened the envelope and pulled out the stacks of cash. I didn't count it. I just looked at them, a small pile of bills that had shattered our family. "This is all of it?" I asked, my voice low. "Yes, Dad," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "We sold everything. We had to. The money was gone. We had to get a loan from the bank, and now we're in debt. We had to sell all our things to pay you back." My heart ached. They had learned the hard way. They had sacrificed their own dreams, their own treasures, for a mistake they had made. But I knew this was just the beginning. The money wasn't the end game. It was the first step toward a reconciliation I desperately wanted. I took the stacks of money, placed them on the kitchen table, and then looked at them. "Go to your rooms," I said, my voice firm. "I want to be alone with this for a moment." They hesitated, a look of confusion on their faces, but then complied. They went to their rooms, and the silence in the house returned, this time not a silent rage, but a silent grief. I sat at the kitchen table, the money spread out before me. It felt cold, impersonal. It was just paper, a representation of the truck that was gone forever. It wasn't the same, it would never be the same. The truck was a part of me, a part of my history. The money was a symbol of my pain. I picked up the phone and dialed Frank, my lawyer friend. "Frank," I said, my voice trembling, "they brought me the money, all of it." That's a big step, David," he said, his voice full of a cautious hope. "What are you going to do with it?" "I'm not going to keep it," I said, the words a sudden profound clarity. "It's not mine, not really. I'm going to set up a trust in their names. The money will be a safety net for them, for a house, for a future, for when they need it. I'm going to tell them that." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "David, that's an incredible gesture, but are you sure? They did this to you. They hurt you." "I know," I said, the tears finally flowing, "but they are my children, and I love them. I have to find a way to forgive them, and they have to find a way to forgive themselves. This money, it's the start of that. It's the first step toward healing. It's a lesson, not about money, but about family, about trust, about what's truly important." I hung up and sat at the table looking at the money. It wasn't just money anymore. It was a second chance, a chance for me to show them that my love was bigger than my anger, that my forgiveness was stronger than my pain. I was still heartbroken, but a small spark of hope had been lit. The road to healing was long, but for the first time since the day I discovered my empty driveway, I could see a light at the end of the tunnel. I stood up, walked to their rooms, and knocked on their doors. They opened them, their faces a mix of apprehension and exhaustion. "Come back to the kitchen," I said, my voice gentle. "We need to talk, and this time we're going to talk honestly, about the money, about what happens now." They followed me, their heads bowed, and sat at the table. They looked at the stacks of cash and then at me. "I have a choice to make," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I could keep this money. I could use it to buy a new truck or a new car. I could punish you for what you did. But I'm not going to, because I love you and because the money isn't the point. The point is the lesson, and you have learned it." They looked at me, their eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief. "This is not a reward," I said, my voice firm. "This is a trust. This is a chance for a new beginning. I'm going to put this money in a trust fund for both of you. It's for your future, for a down payment on a house, for an emergency, for when you need it. I'm not giving it back to you, I'm giving it to your future selves. I'm trusting you to use it wisely, to use it to build a life, a family, that is based on trust and honesty. You have to earn that trust back, little by little, and this is the first step, for you, for me, for us." The tears began to flow down their faces, not of sadness, but of relief. Michael's stoic facade crumbled, and he put his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand, her grip tight as if she were afraid to let go. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered. "Thank you so much." "Don't thank me," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Thank yourselves. You worked hard for this money. Now you have to work hard to earn back my trust, and I promise you I'll be here every step of the way." We sat in silence for a long time, the money sitting between us like a physical manifestation of our broken relationship. But in that moment, it didn't feel like a barrier. It felt like a bridge, a fragile, hopeful bridge to a future where we could be a family again. The days that followed were a testament to the fragile beginnings of reconciliation. The atmosphere in the house shifted from one of silent hostility to cautious communication. Michael started helping me around the house without being asked, not just with the things I needed, but with the things he knew I couldn't do with my crutches. He fixed a leaky faucet, mended a broken fence, and even cleaned out the garage. Sarah started cooking meals, not just for herself but for me, and we'd sit at the dinner table, eating in a comfortable silence, a silent truce. The money was in the trust fund now, its presence a constant, silent reminder of the pain and the possibility of a new beginning. We didn't talk about it. Not yet. We were still rebuilding. One afternoon, Michael came into the living room, his face serious. "Dad," he said, his voice low, "I'm sorry. Not just for the truck, but for everything. For not listening, for not respecting you, for making you feel like you weren't a part of our lives." I nodded, the words sticking in my throat. "I know, son, I know. It's hard to accept that you're grown up. I guess I was still treating you like you were kids." "We're not," he said, his voice firm, "and we were wrong. So, what can we do to make it right? You need a truck. We have some money saved from a side gig. We can try to find you a new one." "No," I said, my voice gentle. "That's not what I want. I don't want a new truck. I don't want you to replace what you took. What I want is for you to learn to respect what I have, and to learn the value of things. And I have an idea of how we can do that." They looked at me, their faces a mixture of confusion and hope. "You said you wanted a house, a place for all of us," I said, my voice low. "We can do that. Not with the money from the trust, but with something else. With work, with our hands, with our time. I can teach you everything I know about building and fixing. We can find a house together, a fixer-upper, and we can make it our own. We can build a new home, a new life together, with our own hands." Michael's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life," I said. "This is not about money. It's about rebuilding. It's about us, and it's about a new kind of work, a new kind of life, a new kind of family. We can do this, I know we can." They looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Then they looked at me, their eyes filled with a new kind of hope, a new kind of love. "We're in, Dad," Sarah said, her voice full of emotion. "We're in." And so we began a new chapter. We spent the next few weeks searching for the perfect house. We looked at dozens of properties, some falling apart, some just needing a little love. We finally found the perfect one, a small 2-bedroom bungalow with a big backyard, a fixer-upper with good bones, and a quiet charm. It was in a small town, a short drive from our current home, in a quiet neighborhood. It was perfect. We spent the next month working on it. We tore down walls, replaced old plumbing, and painted everything in sight. I taught them how to use a hammer, how to mix concrete, how to lay tile. We worked side by side, our hands getting dirty, our bodies tired, but our spirits soaring. We talked, we laughed, we argued, we made up. We were a family again, not in a fragile, broken way, but in a strong, resilient way. One afternoon we were taking a break, sitting on the porch of the new house drinking iced tea. Michael looked at me, his face serious. "Dad," he said, "I'm sorry about the truck. I really am. I know we can't replace it, but I want to do something for you, something that shows you how sorry I am." "It's already done, son," I said, my voice gentle. "This house, this is all I need. This is a new truck, a new home, a new life. We built this together. This is a testament to our family, to our love, to our ability to forgive. This is a new chapter, and it's the best one yet." He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that I hadn't seen in a long time. Sarah reached across and took my hand, her grip tight, as if she were afraid to let go. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow on the house. The house wasn't just a house. It was a symbol of our new beginning. It was a new kind of work, a new kind of life, a new kind of family. And it was all ours. As the days turned into weeks, the rhythm of our new lives settled into a comfortable, productive flow. We spent every weekend working on the new house. The blisters on our hands, the paint on our clothes, and the sawdust in our hair were badges of honor, a silent testament to our shared labor. The house was transforming, and so were we. The physical work was a catharsis, a way to mend the emotional wounds that had festered for so long. One Saturday, while we were on a ladder painting the trim, Michael spoke, his voice low. "Dad," he said, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, son," I replied, my brush a steady stroke against the wood. "Why didn't you keep the money? You had every right to. We wronged you. Why did you give it back to us?" I paused, looking out at the yard, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves. "Because the money was never the point," I said, the words coming easily now. "The point was the principle. The point was to teach you a lesson about respect, about trust, about the value of things. And I knew that keeping the money would have destroyed us. It would have meant that the money was more important than you were. and you are the most important thing in my life." He was silent for a moment, and I could feel his gaze on me. "I don't know what to say, Dad. I'm sorry. We were so caught up in our own lives, our own dreams. We thought we knew what was best for you. We were so wrong." "I know," I said, "and I'm sorry too. I should have listened more. I should have told you how I felt about the truck. I should have been more open. We all made mistakes, but we're fixing them now. Together." He nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the truth of my words. We finished the trim in silence, a new understanding passing between us. The air was no longer thick with unspoken tension, but with a quiet, shared understanding. That evening, as the sun was setting, Sarah came to me. She had been quiet all day, her hands busy with a rag, polishing the newly installed windows. "Dad," she said, her voice soft, "I have something to tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago." I looked at her, my heart a gentle flutter. "What is it, sweetheart?" "The money we gave you, the trust fund, it wasn't just the money from the dealership. We added more. We sold some things of our own. Michael sold his vintage guitar, and I sold some of Mom's jewelry that she had given to me. We wanted to give you more. We wanted to show you how sorry we were." My heart ached. The guilt had been so heavy on their shoulders that they had sacrificed their own treasures to make it right. It was a gesture that spoke volumes, a silent apology that words could never convey. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "We were afraid," she whispered. "We were afraid you would be mad. We were afraid you would think it wasn't enough. We were afraid we had lost you forever." I pulled her into a hug, my arms wrapping around her, holding her tight. The tears streamed down my face. "You never lost me," I said, my voice a choked sob. "You never did. I love you, sweetheart. I love you both." Michael came over and joined the hug, and we stood there for a long time, a family of three, hugging and crying, the sun setting on the horizon, painting the sky in a kaleidoscope of colors. The house was not just a house, it was a home. It was a testament to our new beginning, a new chapter in our lives, a new kind of family. The next morning we woke up to a new day, a new beginning. We worked together, our hands and hearts in unison. We were building a new home, a new life, a new family. The house was a symbol of our journey, a physical representation of our forgiveness, our love, our strength, and the empty driveway at the old house. It was no longer a reminder of a betrayal, but of a beginning of a new chapter, a new life, a new kind of love. It was a new kind of work, a new kind of family, and it was all ours. Months passed, and the house began to feel like a home. The renovations were almost complete, and we were making plans to move in. The trust fund remained untouched, a silent promise of a future built on a foundation of trust. We were a family again, stronger and more connected than ever. The empty driveway at my old house had become a distant memory, replaced by the daily progress on our new home. One afternoon I received a phone call from an unfamiliar number. It was Brenda, the saleswoman from Honest Auto. "Mr. Peterson?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I'm calling about your truck, the red Ford F-150. My heart skipped a beat. "What about it?" "We sold it," she said, "to a private collector. He came in a few weeks ago looking for vintage trucks, and yours caught his eye. He was a truck enthusiast, and he loved your truck, the history, the wear and tear, the character. He saw it as a piece of history, not just a vehicle. He paid a premium for it." "And?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. "What's the point of this, Brenda?" "He died," she said, her voice somber. "A heart attack. His family, they're cleaning out his estate and they're selling his trucks. They asked us to handle the sale, but they're not just selling them. They're trying to find the original owners to see if they want to buy them back." It was his last wish. He loved his trucks, and he wanted them to go to a good home. "They're willing to sell it back to you for the same price they paid for it." The news hit me like a ton of bricks. The truck, the one I had mourned, the one I had let go of. It was back. It was a second chance, but it was a second chance I couldn't afford. The money was in the trust fund. It was for them, not for me. I hung up the phone, my mind reeling. I had to tell the kids. I had to tell them about the truck, about the opportunity to get it back. I knew it would be a difficult conversation. They had already sacrificed so much, and now I was asking for another sacrifice. That evening, I gathered them in the living room. I told them everything, from the phone call to the opportunity to get the truck back. I watched their faces as I spoke, their expressions a mix of disbelief, hope, and despair. "Dad," Michael said, his voice quiet, "you should get it. It was your truck. It was a part of you. We'll find a way to get the money, we'll get a loan, we'll work extra hours, we'll do anything we have to." "No," I said, my voice firm. "That's not what I want. That money is for you, for your future, for a down payment on a house, for a rainy day. It's for you to build a life on. I won't touch it, I can't, it's not mine." "But Dad," Sarah said, her voice pleading, "it's a second chance. You deserve it. You deserve to have your truck back. We can get it for you. We can use the money from the trust." "No," I said again, my voice unyielding. I won't touch it. The money is for your future. I will find a way to get the truck back on my own. I'll get a loan, I'll work a second job, I'll do whatever it takes. But I won't touch the trust fund. It's a promise I made to you, a promise I intend to keep." They looked at me, a new respect in their eyes. The money, once a source of conflict, was now a source of trust. The truck, once a source of pain, was now a source of hope. They had betrayed me, and I had forgiven them. They had taken my truck, and I had given them a trust fund. Now I was facing a new dilemma, a new sacrifice, but I knew what I had to do. I had to show them that my word was my bond, that my love was stronger than any challenge. The next day I called Brenda back. I told her I would find a way to get the money. She said she would hold the truck for a few weeks, but no longer. The clock was ticking. I had a few $100s in my savings, but it wasn't nearly enough. I would need to work. I called my handyman clients and I told them I was back in business. I was still on crutches, but I could do small jobs, things that didn't require heavy lifting. I could do electrical work, plumbing, and small repairs. The next few weeks were a blur of hard work. I worked from sunup to sundown, hobbling from one job to the next. I was tired, my leg ached, but I felt a new sense of purpose. I was working for something more than just money. I was working for a principle. I was working to show my children that I was a man of my word. I was working to show them that I was a father they could respect. And I was working to get my truck back. The weeks turned into a month, and the deadline for the truck loomed closer. I had saved up a good amount of money, but it wasn't enough. I was still a few $1,000s short. I was exhausted, my body aching from the strain, but I refused to give up. I had to get that truck back. It wasn't just about the truck anymore. It was about the principle. I was at the new house one afternoon, a few days before the deadline, working on the front porch, when Michael and Sarah came over. They sat on the steps, watching me, their faces solemn. "Dad," Michael said, his voice quiet, "we need to talk." I stopped what I was doing and looked at them. "What is it, son?" "We've been talking," Sarah said, her voice soft, "and we've decided something. We're going to use the money from the trust to get you the truck back." My heart sank. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I told you, that money is for you. I won't touch it." "We know," Michael said, "but we want to. We want to do this for you. We want to show you that we've changed. We've been working too, Dad. We've been saving our money. We have enough to make a down payment on a new house, and we want to do it with our own money, not with the money you gave us. We want to do it right. This time." My heart swelled with a mixture of pride and emotion. They had learned. They had learned the hard way, but they had learned. They had learned the value of $1, the value of hard work, the value of honesty. They had learned that a home is not just a place, but a feeling of trust, a feeling of love, a feeling of family. "The money in the trust," Sarah continued. "We want you to use it to get your truck back, and then we want you to use it to get yourself a new car. Something safe, something reliable, something that won't break down on you, something that will last you for a long time. We want you to be safe, Dad, and we want you to be happy." I looked at them, my eyes filled with tears. I had been so wrong. I had thought they were selfish, that they were apathetic, that they were lost. But they weren't. They were just kids, trying to find their way. They had made a mistake, a big one, but they had learned from it. They had grown. They had become adults. "Thank you," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "Thank you so much, but you don't have to. I'll find a way." "No, Dad," Michael said, his voice firm. "We're doing this. It's our way of making things right. It's our way of apologizing. It's our way of showing you that we love you, that we respect you, that we're a family." I didn't argue. I couldn't. The tears were streaming down my face now, a mixture of sadness and joy. The sadness of what we had been through, and the joy of what we had become. We had lost a truck, but we had gained so much more. We had gained trust. We had gained respect. We had gained a new kind of love. The next day we went to Honest Auto. The truck was there, a familiar sight, a symbol of a life I thought was gone forever. It was a little worn, a little dented, a little faded, but it was beautiful. It was mine. We went to the bank, and Michael and Sarah took the money from the trust fund. They had a long conversation with the bank manager, explaining everything. The manager, a kind man with a weathered face, listened patiently. He shook his head, a mixture of sympathy and admiration on his face. He told them he would make an exception for them, and he would let them use the money from the trust fund. He told them he had never seen a family so dedicated to each other. We paid for the truck, and I drove it home, the engine humming, a familiar sound that felt like coming home. I pulled into the driveway, the empty space now filled with a familiar sight. I parked it in the garage, and I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, the smell of old oil and gasoline, a profound comfort. It was a new truck, a new life, a new beginning. I got out of the truck and I looked at Michael and Sarah. They were standing there, their faces a mixture of relief and pride. We had been through a lot. We had been broken, but we had been mended. We had been shattered, but we had been put back together. We had lost a truck, but we had gained a family. The day we moved into the new house was a beautiful, sun-drenched Saturday. The air was filled with the smell of fresh paint and new wood, and the sounds of laughter and music. We had worked so hard, and now we were finally home. The old house, the one with the empty driveway, was in the hands of a realtor, and soon it would be gone forever. The new house was perfect. It was a little smaller, a little cozier, but it was ours. We had built it with our own hands, with our own sweat and tears. Every dent, every scratch, every imperfection was a testament to our journey. It was a new chapter, a new life, a new family. I was in the garage, a new F-150 parked where the old one used to be. The kids had used some of the money from the trust to get me a newer, safer truck. It was a brand new truck, shiny and sleek, with a powerful engine and a comfortable interior. It wasn't the old truck, the one with the dents and scratches, the one with 100 stories, but it was a new truck, a new beginning. Michael came into the garage, a small box in his hand. "Dad," he said, his voice quiet, "I have something for you." He opened the box, and inside was a small hand-carved model of my old red F-150. It was perfect. Every detail, every dent, every scratch was there. "I made it for you," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I wanted to give you a piece of your history, a piece of our history. The old truck is gone, but the memories are still there. They'll always be there." I took the model, my hands trembling. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. It wasn't just a model, it was a symbol of his love, his respect, his forgiveness. It was a symbol of a family mended, a family healed. "Thank you, son," I said, a tear rolling down my cheek. "Thank you so much." He hugged me, and we stood there for a long time in the garage of our new home, the old and the new, the past and the present, together in one moment. Sarah came in and handed me a small, wrapped gift. I opened it, and inside was a small, handmade keychain. It was a small piece of wood, carved into the shape of a heart, with the words "My Family" carved into it. "I made it for you," she said, her voice soft. "I wanted you to have a piece of me, a piece of us, every time you drive. So you'll always remember that we're a family, we're a team, and we're in this together." I hugged her, and we stood there for a long time, a family of 3, hugging and crying, a new chapter in our lives beginning. The old house was gone, the empty driveway was gone, but the love, the trust, the respect, they were all still there. They were all still there, in our new home, in our new life, in our new family. The next morning, I woke up to a new day, a new beginning. I looked out the window at the new driveway, at the new truck. It was a new life, a new hope, a new family. We had been through a lot. We had been broken, but we had been mended. We had been shattered, but we had been put back together. We had lost a truck, but we had gained so much more. We had gained trust, we had gained respect. We had gained a new kind of love, and it was all ours. I took the small wooden model of my old truck and the small wooden keychain, and I placed them on my dashboard. They were a reminder of our journey, a reminder of the lessons we had learned, a reminder of the love we had found. They were a reminder that a family is not just a place, but a feeling of trust, a feeling of love, a feeling of family, and it was all ours.